This is how you get clients to give you more money, more respect, and more creative freedom. I'm Harbor with Extra Credit Design Club, and today we are going to talk about the steps that you can take to attract clients who respect your work, respect your process, and respect your wallet too. What exactly am I talking about? I am talking about specialization. Now, you may hear that and think, that sounds vague. What is it? Don't worry, I'm going to break it down in this video thoroughly. It's going to come with 3 parts. Number 1, I am going to really show you the power that is specialization and what it can do for you. Number 2, I'm going to talk about the steps that you need to take to become specialized and become a master of your craft. And finally, number 3, if you have any objections, especially as a creative person, about narrowing in and specializing, I will address those toward the end of this video. First things first, why is specialization so powerful? Us as creatives, we're visual people, so I'm going to show you an example that will really illustrate the power that comes with specialization. This can apply to any creative field, but for this example, let's pretend that you want to be a freelance graphic designer. Congratulations, there are 10,000 freelance graphic designers out there. Now let's pretend I am a client who needs some freelance graphic design. I don't really work with graphic designers. I don't know anything about it, so I'm just looking for a graphic designer. There are 10,000 of you. What is the likelihood that I will pick you from the bunch of 10,000? And even if I do notice you from the bunch of 10,000, why would I pick you when somebody else, guaranteed, is going to do it for a cheaper price? By definition, that's where most graphic designers are, this general graphic design level. They attract clients who just need a graphic designer, and their budgets reflect that respect. Now, let's pretend that you're in this sea of 10,000 designers. You look around and you say, not very many of us are designing type. I'm going to start designing typefaces. Now you suddenly move up to a smaller crowd. There's maybe 100 of that 10,000 who specialize in type design. And chances for you, as the designer who now has a specialty, go way up in not only getting the job because you have much less competition, but also getting a client who respects, understands design, and is willing to pay more for your specialty. But it doesn't even stop there. We can take it one level further. Let's say you look around. Out of these 100 type designers, there's only 10 of us that are going to specialize in, let's say, retro typography. Now, when a client who is nuanced enough, he's worked enough to know that, hey, not only do I need a graphic designer, I need someone who specializes in typography, and I need someone who specializes double beyond that in retro typography. This type of client knows what they need and will not settle for anything less than that double specialist. That client knows enough about design to know that you are the expert. He will give you the creative freedom. Now, you only have to compete with 10 other designers. There's still some competition, but later in this video, when we get to the steps of how to specialize, I'll hit you with a tip to make sure that you stand out even amongst the elite specialists. Before we move on, understand this, if you understand one thing. Big companies with big budgets hire specialists, not generalists. Now, hopefully with that example, you understand the power of becoming a specialist. Not only do you eliminate competition, but you attract clients who respect and admire your work, who respect your creative process, and who have the budget to prove they do. Now, part 2, the steps that you need to take to become a specialist. I recently read, boom, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And in the first chapter, you don't have to go deep. You can find out the 3 steps that it takes to become a specialist. The book focuses on just one of them, but I want to dive deeper into all 3 steps. Step 1, pick a path, walk down that path, and don't look back. Now, I know it's difficult as a creative person to pick one path. That, for me, is the hardest part of the whole thing. But don't worry, it is possible. I will address that at the end of the video, any doubt you have. But moving forward, when you pick a path, when you're trying to decide in what should I specialize, obviously consider your passion, consider your resources and your talents. What would you enjoy doing and what would you enjoy learning? That is the base level. Now beyond that, this is the powerful question. How can you put yourself in a category of one? How can you position yourself in a market so that you have no other competition? If you remember from the example, we talked about 10,000 graphic designers, 100 specialize in type, 10 in retro typography, but maybe you can even take that further and say, I'm going to be the retro typography specialist in the sports world, or I'm going to learn French and do it in France, or whatever it is. Try and figure out how you can put yourself into a category of one. That way, when a client needs a solution for this specific problem, you are the person to turn to. It's awesome because you have no competition and supply and demand. There's only one of you. You have very limited time, so you are able to charge more. The people who are coming to you understand that they need your exact expertise, and they generally have the budget to back that up. Now, a real life example of this from my life. When I first decided to start designing fonts, I knew that I didn't want to compete with the sea of people designing fonts. I wasn't the best font designer, I still had to learn, but I had confidence that I could rise above 80% of people in their skill set with hard work and dedication. The information is free on the internet. I have a computer. I can do it. But I needed to differentiate myself beyond just my skill level. So I decided I was going to create a type foundry that looks slick, professional. It has the where you can type in what you want and see how your font looks. My fonts have open type features, super robust language support. These are top shelf fonts that I'm making. But that's nothing too unique. There are still 20, 30 type foundries out there. So I decided even further, I was going to be the person who would make this high quality font and sell it for $15, way, way under my competition. I was going to be the type foundry where if you were like me, super poor, but have a nuanced eye for design, good taste, but you can't afford, the $60 fonts, I was going to be the type foundry that you come to. As far as I knew, there were definitely no other type foundries out there who had robust language support, who had open type features, who had variable fonts, all starting at $15, super easy licensing structure. I put myself in a category of one. At the time I got into type design, it was a super, super saturated market. Many of people who started at the same time as me fell off because they didn't understand that even in a saturated market, you can find yourself in a category of 1 or 5 or 10. It's a much better place to be than just, I am a font designer. Now, I'm a font designer who creates robust, high-end fonts and sells them at super accessible prices with super, super easy to understand licenses. And thankfully, I've been able to support myself for the past couple of years doing that. Step 2, become an expert. This is simple enough. Once you decide on your specialization, you need to be honest with yourself and you need to work to acquire the skill set that it takes to master your specialization. You need to become the best at what you do. If that sounds overwhelming, do not be discouraged. If you picked a tight specialization, it will be so much easier to master your craft. It's hard to master graphic design on a general level. It's a little bit easier to master typography. It's a little bit easier to master retro typography. And the more narrow that you get in your specialization, the easier it is to master because you don't have this distraction, that distraction. You spend your time really honing in on this set of problems, this skill set to serve this specific client. An example from my life, when I started designing typefaces, I was going general. I designed one of each. I didn't know what I liked yet. I wanted to learn it all, so I did it all. And eventually, I found a bit of a lane that I enjoy. As of late, I'm really specializing in sans serif variable families. I may just be one of 1,000 type designers. I may be one of 100 designers who loves sans serif. But I am definitely in the top of type designers who love to design variable sans serifs. There's not a lot of us. And while I've signed NDAs and I cannot tell you, I have definitely sold fonts and designed fonts for multiple 5 figures because people come to me when they need a variable sans serif typeface. Not a lot of people can deliver on that, but the person who knows they need a variable sans serif typeface knows enough about design to know how important it is and what they should pay a specialist. As I said, I've been designing type for 4 years and I just now am starting to feel like, yeah, I can confidently say I'm a great type designer. It took 4 years to get here. I had to work on type design after I worked my first job and my second job until my type design could support me. If this seems overwhelming, just consider the alternative of not taking the time to find a specialty and master it. Would you rather be 1 in 100 or 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, just general graphic designers without a mastered skill set in a specific area? Step number 3 in becoming the specialist is to tell people what you do. You could be the best in the world, but nobody will know unless you tell them. Let's pretend that you, for example, decided to specialize in minimalism, abstract 3D art. You are the best in the world at that. But if you don't post it on your socials, post it on here and here and here, nobody is going to know that. You need to put this information in front of the people who need it. If I am a client who needs a minimalist, abstract 3D design specialist, I'm going to take to the internet. And if you've put your work on the internet and said, this is what I am, I will find you. Now, if you only posted once on Instagram, I probably won't find you. I'll have to settle for just the general 3D designer or the general abstract 3D designer. I'm not going to be as happy with the results, and you are poor because you missed the opportunity just by not telling people what you do. When I started designing type, I posted on Creative Market, you work for them, Etsy, Envato Elements, Monotype, Design Cuts, Pixel Surplus. Everywhere that I could put my fonts, I put them. And because of that, the people who need what I offer are able to find me easily. You don't have to worry about algorithms and this and that. Just consistently post your work. You should have a lot of work because you spent the time to master it. Just throw it up, say what it is, say what you specialize in. That way, when somebody needs your particular expertise and they Google it, your work will show up. Part 3. Now that we understand the power of becoming a specialist and the steps we need to take to become that person, let's address some doubts that most likely you have been asking yourself along the way. This is my favorite part of the video because I have these doubts heavy. I am capital C creative and I question everything. So let's start with this. This was my mindset. I'm betting you can relate. I got into graphic design because I loved all the opportunities that the field had. I am a creative person through and through. I love video, photography, typography. I love to draw. I love 3D. I love motion graphics. I even dabble in music production. I do it dang all, and graphic design is a place where I can do it dang all if I want. When somebody tells me, pick a lane, stay in your lane, I have a visceral reaction like, that's not me. Don't tell me how to live. I know that I need to create like this in order to be happy. And in my mind, I thought, if I had to do the same thing day in and day out, create work in the same style, use the same softwares, I'm going to be miserable and most likely literally go crazy. I understand this dilemma on a level that is just primal. But again, in the Win Without Pitching manifesto, it gave me an example that really was enlightening. I, as a creative person, you as a creative person, naturally want to put yourself in a situation where you have more opportunities, more paths to pursue. So, if you will, imagine with me for a second. If you want to even close your eyes, do that. But imagine you are in a big room with doors all around. Each door is an opportunity, a path to explore. You, being a creative person, you're going to open a door, peek in, maybe walk in, hang out a little bit, but you're going to leave that door open because you know, hey, I want to go back and I want to explore other doors. I want to see what's behind them all. Now, if I tell you, hey, pick a door, close it, lock it, and that's that. It's, no, right? You think you're going to just be walking down a long, gray, narrow hallway for the rest of your life and you'll be miserable. But I promise you, behind that door, if you pick it, lock it, and walk down the path, you are going to find other doors. You're going to look to your side. That's a door. That's a door. Boom. And you can do the same thing you did in that first room. Explore new avenues. You have opportunities still, but the difference is that behind each door you explore, there's going to be less and less people in that room. And pretty soon you're going to be the only one. You are going to be exploring totally uncharted territory. And now I can tell you from experience that it is super, super exciting to be on the cutting edge of an industry, opening doors that no one has opened. The only way to do that is by picking a path and going further down it than anybody has before. Now, if you are still not convinced by the metaphor, consider this. I know that you chose a creative industry because you love to create. You didn't pick this because you want to get rich. That's what doctors and lawyers and the like do. We are here because we love to create, and you may fear that picking a specialty and sticking to it will limit your creative opportunities. But I am here to tell you this. Nothing opens up as many opportunities as being rich. You can still do all the things that you enjoyed doing when you had no money. But you can have so much more opportunities. One of my main motivations for doing what I do, trying to make money, is because I want to be able to pursue my creative endeavors without having to have the burden of, oh, if this doesn't work out, how am I going to pay rent, right? I want to be sitting on a pile of money and just saying, hey, let me travel to central France for a year and master the art of furniture design. And I'm not going to worry about how to pay bills because I've already taken care of it. This does take discipline. You will need to bridle your passions and not pursue everything that catches your eye. But I promise you that if you are financially stable, the opportunities allotted to you are so much more vast. Now, the second concern comes as a word of warning or a caution. When you are picking your specialty, do so wisely. I was talking to a friend and he was saying how important it is to be unique yet accessible. Let's pretend, this is his example, that you are the world's best at making fonts out of caterpillars. You could make them better than anybody ever will. The only problem is nobody wants to buy fonts made out of caterpillars. So again, when you are choosing a specialty, don't go too niche, too narrow. Choose a path where people who can pay you what you're worth are in need of your service. Remember, big companies with big budgets hire specialists. Try and put yourself in their shoes and understand their problems so that you might become a solution. It's an empathetic endeavor, but luckily, as creatives, we generally are empathetic people. That's it and that's all. If there are any doubts, concerns I didn't cover, please put them in the comments. We'll talk about them. As always, I'm Harbor with Extra Credit Design Club. Subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and I'll catch you in the next.